Episodes of Palette Swap are suggested by viewers like you. If there's a character you'd like me to analyze, let me know in the comment section down below. Good morrow everyone, Silvershire here, and welcome back to Palette Swap, where I rank the costumes and character designs of your favorite fighting games. And by your favorite fighting games, I really do mean your favorite fighting games, because I'm more of a Namco guy. Today, we're looking at the woman who took 30 years to figure out what pants are, Cammy White. But before we begin our analysis, here's a quick refresher course on who Cammy is and what we should be looking for in her character designs. Cammy is a member of Delta Red, an elite squad of the British Secret Service's best operatives, and that's the only part of her story that isn't a convoluted mess. Because long before that, she was one of the Dolls, a group of young women brainwashed into serving the villainous Mike Bison. One day, Bison sent Cammy to assassinate an Indian monk named Dulcim, which was a terrible idea because he was able to use the ancient magical art of yoga to unwash her brain. She went back and confronted Bison, who told her that she's unlike the other dolls. She's actually his modified clone, whose body he planned to hijack once his own was destroyed. Wow, if I had a nickel for every time an English woman in a fighting game was revealed to be a spare vessel for the spirit of the main antagonist, I would have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that happened twice, right? Anyway, he knocked her out and left her to die in an exploding building, but one of his minions thought she was a real hottie and brought her to safety. That's where she met Delta Red, who immediately invited her to join their ranks, because apparently the British Secret Service doesn't do background checks. A few fighting tournaments later, Bison was defeated, and Cammy managed to free her surrogate sisters from his control. But now, another mission awaits. Despite not being one of the original World Warriors, Cammy's Street Fighter II design is easily one of the most iconic costumes in the entire series. This is due in part to a few distinct traits that make her instantly recognizable, such as her beret, her long blonde braids, and her facial scar, the last of which implies a long history of violent conflict. She's wearing a skin-tight leotard that's obviously just meant to show off dem pixels, but if you're feeling generous, you could say it resembles gymnastics attire and therefore communicates her acrobatic fighting style. She also has camouflage painted on her legs, and this is probably an unpopular opinion, but I'm not a fan. She doesn't have camo anywhere else, so it just feels tacked on, especially with how sparse it is. Also, I'd prefer her combat boots to have more red on them so as to balance out the hat and gauntlets. 6 out of 10. As with the other Street Fighter characters, I'm only going to mention alternate colors if I find them particularly noteworthy, which isn't the case for any in this game. Street Fighter Alpha is a prequel to Street Fighter II, so Cammy is still one of Bison's dolls, and to be honest, she looks kinda goofy. Between the bright colors and the teeny tiny hat and tie, it's hard to take her seriously. To be fair, I think that's the point. She is a doll after all. She's meant to be unassuming so you're caught off guard when she does a backflip and snaps a guy's neck. But that doesn't mean I like it. I do prefer the lightning bolts on her legs to the camo, and the palette is eye-catching, but overall it's a downgrade from the previous game. 4 out of 10. Street Fighter IV is where alternate costumes really took off, and Cammy got 6 brand new designs. Her first alt is cold weather gear. In addition to the winter coat, she has fur lining on her boots and gloves underneath her usual gauntlets, which are nice touches. However, they just draw attention to how ridiculous her bare legs are. Like, Cammy, my girl, your greatest enemy isn't Bison, it's Frostbite. Also, her palette is pretty dull. I actually like this pale taupe for her main color, but it needs to be broken up by more than just her gauntlets. 3 out of 10. Her second ult shows what would happen if Bison was successful in taking over her body. Her hat, pauldrons, and boots are identical to his, while her gauntlets and leotard are a mix of his design and her own. She also has thigh-high socks, because I guess Bison didn't want to show off too much leg. Speaking of which, her leg paint is reminiscent of the lightning bolts from Alpha, which makes sense because that's what she looked like when she was under Bison's control. It's too bad she doesn't have all white eyes like him, as that would make it clear that this is a possession and not just Cammy playing dress-up. 7 out of 10. This costume's alternate colors are all the same as Bison's. None of them specifically stand out to me, but I think that's a neat detail. Her third ult is a cat-themed superhero costume, which is a nod to her established love of cats. I appreciate that she's not just a knockoff Catwoman, which would have been the obvious direction to take this concept. Instead, they went with a partially armored design and an almost pastel color palette. I like that she has her signature lock of hair sticking out the front of her mask, as it helps keep her recognizable. I'm not feeling the baggy leg sleeve things, though. They seem out of place alongside all the sleek spandex and metal. 5 out of 10. Her vacation outfit, as the name implies, is a casual look, but there are still signs of her tough personality, such as the spiky studs on her jacket and the tears in her leggings. Her hat and color palette are reminiscent of her classic look, which helps the design feel in character for Cammy. I'd like a bit of color on either her leggings or her shoes so as to break up the large expanse of black, but that's a nitpick. 8 out of 10. This costume has a great selection of alternate colors, because in addition to changing the palette, some of them add patterns to her leggings and/or jacket. My favorite is unsurprisingly the grey and red version, which also adds a highlight to her hair. Her wild costume is based on a fox, by which I mean she has ears and a tail and nothing else. It barely follows the animal theme, but considering how awful most of the other wild costumes are, that's probably for the best. This is a whimsical look that reminds me of the Mad Hatter, which I suppose is fitting given her English background. It's nothing spectacular, but it's certainly unique. 6 out of 10. Her horror costume turns her into a bee monster, referencing the codename she had when she was a doll, Killer Bee. It's seemingly inspired by QB from fellow Capcom fighter Darkstalkers, but it's far from an exact copy. There are some really clever design choices here, like her hair that forms the shape of both a beehive and a pair of antennae. Her chitinous legs and blacked out eyes are super creepy and make her feel totally inhuman. I think the magenta of her skin is a little too bright. I'd prefer her top to have more of a striped pattern as opposed to concentric circles, but this is still one of the best costumes in the whole pack. It's attention-grabbing, creative, and even relates to her canon story. 8 out of 10. Her alternate costume in Street Fighter X Tekken is a sort of gothy look. It's simple but effective, strongly contrasting Cammy's other designs while also feeling totally in line with her personality. I like the addition of pink to shake up the stereotypically edgy palette of black, red, and white. I do think they could have pushed this concept a little further though. 7 out of 10. Street Fighter X Tekken also gives everyone swap costumes inspired by characters from the other series. Cammy's is based on the Jaguar-themed wrestler King, which is another nod to her love of cats. Her gloves and boots are the same as his, but the rest of the outfit takes some liberties. His blue trunks have become a full leotard, and his mask has become a hood that leaves her face exposed. She also has Jaguar print on her arms and legs instead of just her head, which I'd like to see on the actual King. It's a bit of a missed opportunity to give her the same slogan as King. They could have made some sort of reference to her own history here. 8 out of 10. Her Street Fighter V design is pretty close to her classic look, but it removes the camouflage paint on her legs and adds some tactical belts. This is arguably more generic, but I think it's an upgrade, because as mentioned, I'm not a fan of the camo, and this helps sell her as an elite agent. 7 out of 10. Her story outfit is formal wear, at least the top half is. Like her winter outfit from the previous game, bare legs just don't make sense with the rest of the design. Even if they didn't want to commit to pants, they could have given her a skirt or something, or just made the trench coat longer. It's a shame, because this is a perfect fit for an MI6 agent. It just looks incomplete. 4 out of 10. Her battle outfit further emphasizes the changes made to her default appearance by gearing her up for some kind of infiltration. Out of all her costumes, this makes her look the most like a spy, although it is a little cluttered. Her hair is down, and while I prefer it in braids, that is a nice option to have. 5 out of 10. One of this costume's alternate colors is based on Cyclops from the X-Men. As well as being a cool reference, this is a great looking palette. It has a primary triadic color scheme that pops without being garish, and it's one of only 3 that significantly change her hair color. Her Halloween costume is a zombie bride, and it blows Chun-Li's out of the water. It's more detailed, more colorful, and a lot more unique. The flowers growing on her are a perfect mix of beautiful and macabre, and they tie into the subtle patterns on her dress, which are easier to see in the alternate colors. The only downside is that she doesn't look super undead. She could have taken another page out of Chun's book and had some messy black makeup. Still, it's a 9 out of 10. Cammy has one of the better school uniforms. It's very fancy, resembling the attire of a boarding school, which reflects her strict professionalism. The long ponytail evokes her classic style, but is more apt for the costume's aesthetic. I like the choice to use a more muted green, and the yellow tie is a nice callback to Alpha. 7 out of 10. Her doll costume is essentially a reimagining of her Alpha design meant to bring her more in line with the other dolls who appear in Street Fighter V. She's now wearing a jacket over her leotard and has shorter boots with stockings. I'm all for updating older looks, especially ones I'm not that fond of, but I don't really know what the point of these changes were. They just complicate the outfit without really adding anything to it. I like that the palette is darker, but the colors are all over the place. She doesn't need 3 different shades of blue in addition to black, red, and yellow. 3 out of 10. Her holiday costume is weird. The combination of dress, coat, and cloak is really busy, and the random cat ears on her hood don't tie into the rest of the outfit in any way. It feels like they had 3 different ideas for Cammy claws and just mashed them all together. However, the general Christmas aesthetic does help to unify it a bit, and the cat ears show there is at least an attempt to relate it to Cammy's personality. 5 out of 10. Her Capcom Pro Tour outfit is a simple black dress with some white fur. It looks alright, but there's not much to comment on. It's pretty plain, especially compared to Chun-Li's. 5 out of 10. Her Cannon Spike costume is based on her cameo, no pun intended, in the shoot 'em up of the same name, and it's way too similar to her default look. The only differences are that she's wearing roller skates and the colors are a tad lighter. This would have made more sense as an alternate costume in Street Fighter IV, because back then the black straps and lack of camo paint would have been unique features. I do like that her boots are finally red, but this is such an underwhelming costume. If they really wanted to reference an obscure guest appearance, they should have gone with something like Final Fight Streetwise or Onimusha Soul. 7 out of 10. Her swimsuit is ridiculous, but it's the fun kind of ridiculous. Of course Cammy would be decked out with ammo for a day at the beach. The camo paint is back, and I still don't love it, but I think it works a little better here since it's on her arms and stomach as well as her legs. It also seems a little faded, implying that she's been in the water recently, which is some good visual storytelling. 6 out of 10. Lastly for this game, she has several cosplays of other Capcom characters. They look good, and they're fun options to have if you're a fan of those characters, but from a design perspective, they're not very interesting, because they're just Cammy in other people's clothes. I would have preferred them to be more like her Bison or King outfits. 5 out of 10 for all of them. That finally brings us to Street Fighter VI. Out of all the returning characters, Cammy received the most drastic redesign. Gone are her leotard hat and braids, replaced with a modern, somewhat more grounded outfit. There's a Union Jack on the back of her jacket, well that was hard to say, that in addition to looking cool informs us a bit about her character. She maintains the sense of athleticism present in her classic look and incorporates some punk edginess like her vacation outfit. An especially clever detail is that she has 2 long straps dangling off her jacket, which take the place of braids in her silhouette. Despite my joke about how unsubtle this design is, the pale blue-gray does give her some stealthy vibes. She blends in well against the foggy moonlit streets of her home stage. In my opinion, this is easily the best that Cammy has ever looked, and it's no wonder that the internet was flooded with fan art of her before she was even officially revealed. 10 out of 10. And with that, we have ranked every single Cammy costume. She got off to a bit of a rocky start, but Street Fighter VI seems to be taking her in an excellent direction, and I can't wait to see her alternate costumes. Well, that's just my opinion, so what do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with any of my rankings. Also, let me know which character you'd like to see next. For episode 20, we'll be discussing Voldo from Soulcalibur, as requested by Jacobus. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, I bid thee farewell.